Nora Speaks is a weekly podcast that tugs at the soul and consciousness of the Black community. With show topics such as youth empowerment, education, women's impact, and civic engagement, Nora Speaks challenges the listener to not only join the movement, but be the movement. On the show, you'll learn from insightful guests who have demonstrated capacity in these fields and more, and I'm your host, Nora Muhammad. Welcome to the show. Welcome to another episode of the Nora Speaks podcast, and I am your host, Nora Muhammad, and welcome to episode 132. I am so excited to be back with you in the studio recording another episode. It's always exciting to sit here in the studio where I am recording the podcast, where I do most of my work for the podcast, whether that's the writing, the editing, and of course the recording. It's exciting for me because it's an opportunity that I have to share thoughts, conversations with the Black community about current issues, issues that we have to be concerned about, issues that we have to move forward on or analyze. And as you know, if you've listened to the previous 131 episodes of the Nora Speaks podcast, you know that this episode is really aimed to edify the Black community. It is geared towards improving our outcomes, challenging old behaviors, old thoughts, and helping us construct a ladder out of this suffering that we're finding ourselves in, this continuous cycle of despair, this continuous cycle of violence and death. And, you know, certainly in our experience here in America, we have had a really unprecedented experience. No other people in time have experienced the likes of what Black people in America has experienced and continues to experience. So, you know, when you think about it, so many folks before Black people, after Black people, have had some oppression, who have had some prejudicial behavior, discrimination, limits in society in ways that they are able to take advantage of what should just be human rights or civil rights. However, this experience for us has definitely been unique, having been the property of our Caucasian counterparts in this country, having been their property, treated so horribly in the experience of chattel slavery, and then subsequently emancipated by Abraham Lincoln. And yet we're still here sitting next to, across from, and with those people or those children or great-great-grandchildren of our former owners. And it's a really unique and strange dynamic that we're in, especially since the structure, the system, the government that had us in this condition, that profited from our condition and our maltreatment. And it was for the profit. It wasn't just because we were disliked, but it was, you know, really for the profit and the advancement of this nation, where we really have not been on the receiving end of justice. And so many injustices continue to persevere today. And you know, this isn't new to you. You watch the news, you know what's happening. You're on social media. You see what's occurring around this country. And we continue to do what it is that we can, or we do all that we know to try to mitigate the violence that's done against us by those who are in positions of authority and power. And so I commend those who are in this fight, who continue to sacrifice their time and use their talents and their skill set to try to carve a new pathway for us who do what they can to influence legislation, do what they can to influence healthcare outcomes. So I congratulate and I encourage you, and those who may not know what to do, I would encourage you to get involved by speaking with those who seem like they know what they're doing, or those who seem like they're in the struggle or trying to address the challenges. There's a place for all of us. So I encourage everybody to somehow find a way to get involved. And that isn't always you necessarily being on the front lines. There's so many different ways that people can contribute to a fight or a struggle for justice. Some have to teach the children, right? Some have to feed the families, right? Some are doing it by way of economics and business and service provision. So there's so many different ways. But in this time, in reflecting on our experiences in this country, and currently what's happening in our mainstream media, specifically I'm talking about media and entertainment that is what they call urban, or what is under the category of hip hop and R&B, that we see on stations and media outlets that target the Black community, specifically the Black youth, the Black adolescents. We have to, as we're doing our part to improve our outcomes, we really have to examine the media and messaging and how that is fashioning us, how that's influencing the minds of our children. And we have to reevaluate how we are engaging in this and perpetuating some of this, because to a very, very large extent it's damaging. And so what I want to talk about in this episode is a worthy woman. A worthy woman. And as we're reflecting on, 100 years of women having the right to vote in this country, and we're hearing a lot about those suffragettes, those women who pushed forward and persevered so that women could have the right to vote, among them are Black women. We're Black women. And so we hear about Sojourner Truth, right? There's a movie now that's on Netflix that talked about or outlined the history of Madam C.J. Walker. And there are so many women that we reflect upon in our history. And when we reflect upon them, we do it with such pride because of what they stood for, right? Fannie Lou Hamer is one that comes to mind, and her powerful, powerful voice and the meaningfulness of the contributions that she's had to our history. Rosa Parks, Coretta Scott King, and there are numerous other women that we reflect upon in our Black history in America, and we do it with such pride because of what they stood for, because of how they represented themselves. And so I'm thinking about how great it is that we can have pride in our reflecting on the past, but let's consider, 30, 40, 50 years from now, and we're thinking about the women who are most prominent in our time right now. Who will they be? Now, certainly, Michelle Obama leads the pack, and we're grateful for everything that she does. And, there are people who just are in love with Oprah Winfrey and what she's done in entertainment and how she's made a way for Black actors and women in media and education. But I'm thinking about some of our entertainers or our figures that are pushed out in front of us. Stars don't necessarily make themselves. There are some who are given the microphone or who are given the bright lights, who the cameras are looking for, yet these people don't represent a decent message for our young women, and they certainly do not depict a decent representation of Black women. And I don't necessarily want to name names because it's not so much about them as individual people or personalities, but it's what they're representing that I have such a concern with, because I'm looking at this generation of girls, of teens, of adolescents, of tweens, and I'm considering the messaging that's going into them. And as we know, entertainment and media, it shapes what we think about ourselves. It shapes what we aspire to be. When we're looking at these stars and these entertainers, I'll say I've been thinking about 1986 when Janet Jackson came out with the album Control. And here I was, 10 years old, singing every single song just about that she had on that tape, because I had the tape. And and here I am 10 years old singing about control and how I want to control and, everything that she wore and every dance move that she did. And, Janet Jackson was the star at the time. And those who are in my generation, what Janet Jackson meant to us at that time, during that period when she was hot. Right now, maybe some can think about Beyonce and how big she is. But in the 80s, Janet Jackson. It was all Janet Jackson all through the 90s. And when Janet Jackson came out with that album in 1986 and, the videos were on television, she helped us shape our own identities, right? So who or what images are helping to shape the identities of our young women who are coming of age right now, right? And so, as I said, this really isn't about those entertainers or those figures, but it's about what we are and are not imparting in our young women. And so we have to help our women, our young women, our girls, our teens and tweens. We have to help them understand what it is to be a worthy woman, a woman that is responsible, a woman that is respectable, a woman that has a place to make an impact, to do good. And we have to get on these microphones, get in front of these young women and make an impact and do it in such a way to provide a counter narrative than the one that is so prevalent in mainstream media today. And I'm not talking about Taylor Swift. I'm not talking about Taylor Swift, because the audience that Taylor Swift has is not the same audience that is of the urban consumer, if you will. Taylor Swift and the message that she has and the music that she makes, that's not for our quote urban. And when we use the word urban, it doesn't just mean city anymore, because the world has become so small with social media and internet and the World Wide Web. Urban generally just means Black, right? So when you compare the audience that Taylor Swift has to the audience that urban media is targeting, they're two vastly different audiences. Yet Taylor Swift's message and music and whole image is about a woman that's worthy, but not the message and the media and the figures that are targeted to our young women. And I have an issue with that because we're quiet about it. Right. So when I was thinking about talking about this on the podcast, and it's actually been quite some time, but I wanted to find the right way to discuss this. And it took me some time to do so because I never want to be condescending or judgmental, but I just want to share the truth and state the facts and just open up a conversation or open up some thought that we may not be engaging in, some things we may not have thought about. Now, when artists make music and some of it's vulgar, it's very explicit, and when it's women making explicit content and, everybody clutches their pearls and they say, oh my gosh, this is tawdry. This is so vulgar, right? And so people say, well, so what, is it okay that men talk about these things, or were you being hypocritical? Well, no. In fact, it's not okay when men are tawdry or vulgar. It is not okay. That's not okay either. But at this moment right now, we're talking about the image that women who are influential are giving to our girls. And the predominant image in, again, urban content is tawdry and vulgar. And so we have to provide this counter narrative about what a worthy woman is. Because if we think that our girls are just going to find this on their own, well, they'll be lucky and we'll be lucky. But we have to be active. You know, parenting and being influential in a young woman's life, that's active business. You can't just sit around and just hope it's going to happen. So in this conversation, let's talk about what a worthy woman is. And this isn't a religious message, but, you know, there's such wisdom in those scriptures of the Bible. And so I'm going to refer to those scriptures. And many of you may be familiar with Proverbs 31, verses 10 through 31, discussing a virtuous woman. And so I'm going to share some verses and just talk about terms and definitions and what we should be messaging to our girls to help shape and influence the kind of women they're going to be. Because what we know is that the mother has the greatest influence on a child. The mother, we cultivate and nurture the character, the morals, the values of an entire future. So if the mother is absent of wisdom and knowledge and understanding, then we can already predict what that future is going to look like. So just back to the verses that I want to share with you from this excerpt of the Bible. Who can find a virtuous woman? For her price is far above rubies. So let's talk about what is virtue. Virtue is purity, decency. If someone has virtues, that means they have principles and ethics and they're upright. Who can find a virtuous woman? For her price is far above rubies. It says, strength and honor are her clothing. Strength, fortitude, courage, determined, honor, morality, character, reverence, integrity. Strength and honor are her clothing. Now, as I'm going through this, I hope that you are contrasting, and I want you to contrast what I'm saying to the mainstream voices that's in urban music from Black women. Okay? Strength and honor are her clothing. Now, when we are talking about mainstream media, these women don't even wear clothing in much of their videos or when they're on stage. I'm talking about, or the scripture's talking about, strength and honor, meaning that these women, or this virtuous woman, or this worthy woman, has confidence, she has courage, she's determined, she has morality, character. Contrast that with what we see, what our children, what our daughters, who are sponges, are absorbing. The scripture says, she opens her mouth with wisdom, and in her tongue is the law of kindness, right? Now, we know that wisdom means that somebody's wise. They have discernment. They possess knowledge, right? She opens her mouth with wisdom. What are these women who have the microphone that mainstream media is holding them up? What are we hearing when they open their mouth? Are they speaking wisdom? Are their tongues? Can we find the law of kindness, goodness, compassion, consideration? Nice. Are they nice? Right? The scripture says, she looketh well to the ways of her household. She eats not the bread of idleness. And we know that idleness is inactivity. If you're idle, then you're doing nothing and you're aimless. So as I'm thinking about this, and what messages we are not pushing strongly towards our girls. We have to re-examine the messages that are pushed very strongly towards our girls. And we have to question, why does urban media allow such vulgarity? Right? Now, I have heard, and I'm sure you have heard, that, those who want to make positive messages, happy messages, those artists have a harder time getting put on if they're not lewd, if they're not as vulgar. There's a certain kind of mold that they're making in urban media. And so it's like you pull one out and you put another one in, right? You pull out Nicki Minaj and you put in Megan Thee Stallion, and America has freedom of speech. So these women are free to say whatever it is that they want to say, and they do. But is it okay? And is it okay for your daughter, for your niece, for your granddaughter, for your little sister, for your cousins? Is it okay that they can listen to this auditory pornography and messages that describe a woman's value in the kind of sex that she's having with random men? Is that okay? Where these women are being caricatures on television and not just coming out and talking about who they really are. And contrast that with the pop stars that are making big dollars, that do not have the same compromising language in their message and in their music. And they're comfortable, and they can make a comfortable living without acting vulgar, without dancing vulgar, without being lewd. I know I've referred in a previous podcast episode to when Miley Cyrus came out and she was having these twerking fits. It seems like every video or every performance, she was twerking. And, so many mothers, white mothers, came out and they said, oh, no. So many Caucasian media personalities or news personalities, they came out and said, no, this is not okay. This is not okay for our children. And then we say, oh, well, Miley Cyrus is appropriating Black culture. So it's okay that Black people act like that. But it's not okay that they act like that. It's not okay that anybody acts like that, in my opinion. Now, this is America, and people can do what it is that they want to do, clearly. However, is it right? And why do we settle for this and accept this? Where are the voices? Where are these women of strong character that's speaking out and saying, nah, sis, this isn't okay. This is not okay. There's so many incidents that happens in social media where somebody sends out a tweet or a Instagram post and it's homophobic, or it's sexist, or it's somehow offensive. It's not politically correct. And that person gets canceled, right? Where is the cancellation for the degradation of Black women in media? Where is the cancellation for that? Is it okay because it's women doing it? I say it's not. I don't think it's okay that anybody does it. But think about how we sit and allow our girls to listen and intake these messages without providing a counter narrative for them. I don't think they should have it at all. But since people can say anything that they want in a song, we can at least provide a strong counter narrative. Unfortunately, what happens is when we have discussions like the one that I'm having, then there's women that come out to condemn these kinds of messages. And, I don't mind it. I would love to hear what someone had to say who did not like the message that I'm sharing right now. I'm always interested in a intelligent conversation, but when I'm talking about the worth of a woman and the worthiness of a woman and the character and values that we have to impart into the next generation, I think that would be a strange thing to have a argument against, but I am willing to hear it. And so if you have it, you can email me at info@noraspeaks.com. I'll say it again. That's info@noraspeaks.com. So what I'm saying is, as the woman is the first teacher, and we as mothers, as women, because, just because you're a woman doesn't mean that you're going to be a mother, but there's something very unique in the makeup and character, the inherent character of a woman, where she is a teacher. We impart the culture and the values to the future. And so we have to question, what kind of future are we cultivating if this is what we are imparting to our girls? And so what I believe is that we don't know our worth, and our young girls don't know their worth. When I was 10 years old singing Control, and trying to imitate everything Janet Jackson did, I didn't know what life was about. I could only guess from the images that I saw on television. So what does Janet Jackson think about this? Well, I think that. What does Janet Jackson say about this? Well, that's what I say. Right? So we have to provide some kind of counter narrative. But what we're seeing with women in media and our girls who are imitating, we are like planets that are just out of orbit. There's no boundary. There's no order to our rotation. And we're creating chaos. We're not just creating chaos for ourselves, but we're also creating chaos for our families, our communities, because our behavior, our language, our ideas are so unguided. They're so chaotic and out of control that we are just helping to destroy what's around us. And I believe that, the woman is just so important. And I believe in the worthiness of the woman. And I believe that we are worthy of honor and respect and esteem. But I would also say that our behavior is a reflection of what we have in our minds. Our language is a reflection of what we have in our minds. And if this is what we are allowed to say to our girls, what we're hearing from, quote, urban radio, and this is what we are asking them to consume, because the radio doesn't turn off, we're asking our girls to consume this, and our boys, but specifically our girls, because they're the ones that's going to be the mothers. Then, boy, what kind of a future are we trying to cultivate here? What kind of a hereafter, if you will, because, our children that we have, then they're the ones that are going to be here after us. So what kind of a hereafter are we trying to create? And is it because it's popular we have to refrain from saying anything? Is it because it's the in thing, the popular thing? Is it because it's taboo to talk about virtuousness in womanhood? Then we just are quiet about it. So I believe that, we have to provide a counter narrative, and it has to be a strong counter narrative. There has to be a time when you're around your sister or your cousin that acts like or talks like some of these, quote, urban entertainers. You have to tell your daughter, she's out of line. She's out of pocket. That's not good. That's really, really not good. We have to speak up. We have to speak up, and we have to stop being so afraid to go along to get along. Because look at these results that we're having. And I don't know how we can produce anything that is worthy if we're not going to produce a woman that is worthy. And the ways that we produce women who are worthy is to teach our girls, our teens, our tweens, and our adolescents their worth. And we have to also let them know that what you see on television is purely entertainment. The same way that, we don't want you jumping off of a building because you watch an action movie. It's the same way we don't want you imitating and emulating these raunchy entertainers, because that's all it is entertainment. And when you come down off that stage, we need to know, what kind of character do you have? What kind of a person are you? What does it have what do you have to contribute? How are you moving our mission and our struggle forward if you're going to be somebody that tears down the most valuable thing that we have as a nation, which is the woman? So what is your contribution? So we really have to talk about the worthiness of a woman, a virtuous woman, and counter the narrative of so-called urban radio, urban media. It's a shame. It's really a shame when you hold, what's considered pop up to what's considered urban. And whether it's males, black males that's making, quote, urban music, or black women that's making urban music, it's really a shame that we have the expectation. We just know that there's going to be drug content, sex content, relationships with no accountability, that this is going to be what's going to be woven into the fabric of our youngsters' minds. We have to do better, and we can. I want to thank you for listening to this episode of the Nora Speaks podcast. I really am interested. What do you think about this conversation? What do you think about popular media? And what are you doing to provide a counter narrative for our young people? I look forward to hearing from you. Until next time, stay in peace. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Nora Speaks podcast. Be on the lookout for a new episode coming at you fresh next week. And as always, if you want to learn more about me and the work that I do, visit my website, norahmuhammad.com. Or if you have a listener question, email me at info@norahspeaks.com. You can also follow the Nora Speaks podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Nora Speaks Podcast. I'll be sure to include links in the show notes. If this show has value to you, please subscribe, rate, and review, and share it with family and friends. And be sure to check out previous episodes. And remember, don't just join the movement, be the movement. Stay in peace.